Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. It's time to review Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, new film directed by George C. Wolfe and featuring the show-stopping performances of Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman in his final role. The film is produced by Denzel Washington, who has vowed to bring all 10 of August Wilson's Century Cycle films to the big screen, 2 of which it seems, out of 2, including Fences, will end up with a Best Picture nomination, and at least a nomination in each for Viola Davis. 8 more Viola Davis nominations coming. Yeah, is every film that he produces in this way, like, is it going to be nominated for picture and then acting Oscars? I mean, probably acting Oscars, like, possibly everyone. Like, what do you have to doubt that? Yeah. Chadwick Boseman is the protagonist in this film, and Ma Rainey is sort of like an interesting side character, but that doesn't mean that she's not a big performance. Viola Davis is in the movie a lot. She has, like, a huge presence, and you're either locked into her performance or Chadwick Boseman's performance, and it feels like very enjoyable because you just want to eat it up. Like, you want more and more of each of these performers. I think Chadwick Boseman, probably by the end you feel like you have gotten like a lot from him. Viola Davis, I wanted to see like a little bit more, but I still felt like I got a lot because every second she was on screen it's just like sumptuous. She's so deeply invested in her. It feels like a really great tribute to that character. Viola Davis was so good that she was like funny at times just because her character's so like stubborn. Sipping from the Coca-Cola bottle is excellent. Chadwick Boseman's performance though, he has the character arc. His character has like a lot of dimension to him. His performance is extremely like energetic, almost manic. And with that mania, we see like complete like polar ends of this character, and he has layers. There's always like something beneath the surface that he's playing with. You know, this is a play, so we get long monologues from this character, and they're like truly stunning. His character is absolutely fascinating. In some ways, you could say that this is kind of a character study for him. What Viola Davis's character represents to him is also really interesting. You're not going to get a whole lot of scenes with the two of them like bantering it out. Their performances are mostly kind of separated, but they feel very connected thematically. And I think the movie kind of is almost encompassed by just like these two performances, and everything around it is just like a way to like showcase these two characters. And so their performances are just like the movie in a way. Overall, the film is very good, and it leaves you with a really clear impression of what it wants to say. It's more of a bleak kind of message or takeaway from the film, which I think is very appropriate. I don't know if it's like a crowd pleaser. It definitely doesn't come across that way. It doesn't end that way. It is a little bit of a downer. That's not a criticism of the film at all. I actually just didn't expect it because I kind of saw this as being like an Oscar-y film, but it really is about something like very serious. It does make you think differently about how Black musicians like had to navigate the music world, or just any kind of people of color who were talented at the time. It's sort of about like their battle with like letting out their kind of voice, and the conclusion like really stays with you. The trailer will make you think that this is kind of like a feel-good movie about, you know, playing the blues, but I was definitely like kind of surprised by how dark the story got. It definitely dives like really deep into like the pain of Chadwick Boseman's character. The film has a lot of energy, and I think George C. Wolfe did a really great job at bringing this to the screen. It's very talky, and it does have like only kind of a couple locations, but the banter in the beginning, especially with like the band members, they did a really good job at like capturing the way that they're talking, the relationship of all the band members. Atmospherically, the room that they are in, like the lighting, the cigarette smoke, the production design all feels like very authentic. And that's a really enjoyable part of this film. Costumes, art direction, definitely would expect that at the Oscars. I think it was above average for a play. Does it like transcend being a play? I don't know. I mean, it has to be a play. You know, it just has to. Given what it was pretty kinetic. It definitely did enough to not feel too play-like, but there are scenes where you're watching it and you're like, yeah, this was written as a play. I've had this sort of issue with a couple other like play adaptations I've seen where the dialogue is delivered in this like kind of rapid fire banter between characters. Occasionally, I don't know if it feels like as authentic. It feels a little bit like stagey, the way that they just kind of know what to say like one after another, and it's really quick. All the members of the band are great, and Coleman Domingo and Glenn Turman kind of both have like an equally large and prominent part. I think both of them are good enough and have enough scenes to get a nomination or to be nomination worthy, but I don't necessarily think they're going to, because one, they kind of share the same amount of screen time, and then two, it's just they're not given the same depth of material as like the two leads in the film. You gotta mention Glenn Turman and Coleman Domingo. They absolutely killed it in this film as well. Their performances will go a long way to getting the film its inevitable SAG Ensemble nomination. Everybody in the film was very good. I felt like the ending, and I know that it's based on a play, I'm not sure how I would have experienced it had I watched it as a play, but it kind of felt like the ending came a little bit out of nowhere, or it didn't feel like it needed necessarily to happen in the way that it did. I mean, on this viewing, it felt like a little bit hurried to that conclusion. It felt like a little too big and unnecessary. I often feel kind of the same way about plays adapted to movies, where I liked it throughout and I was really engaged and interested, but it didn't like completely gut punch me or anything. I don't know, maybe just because it just loses like a little bit of the power when it translates. I'm not really sure what it is. It struck me as like a very good, very well acted, well done movie. It gave me a little bit to mull over. Yeah, overall just very good. I agree with like basically all of that. I also will say that generally there's just some parts that feel a little too playish. Not a knock on Chadwick Boseman's performance, but sometimes like the type of monologue that he was given felt like it belonged in like a stage. Like it was really like big. And I could see it working a little better on a stage than in the small room. I wouldn't say that about the first monologue he has, which is like my favorite that he gave, which was like absolutely stunning. That was mostly in close-up. That felt very much like a film. The way that the cinematography was locked into his performance in that scene was really great. So what about Oscars? You're thinking, are Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis going to win? That's what you're thinking, because they're both getting nominated. We know that. Chadwick Boseman, him and Hopkins give like completely unforgettable, amazing performances that could potentially win in a number of years, but if I'm going to pick who's going to win, it's probably going to be Chadwick Boseman. If I had to rank them, like maybe I'd put Hopkins above it, but they're like fucking close. Like they're both amazing and they're wildly different. And as a voter, you could imagine like giving Chadwick Boseman an Oscar makes a little more like sense than giving Hopkins a second. I feel like I'm like totally on board with Chadwick Boseman winning. So he will probably win an Oscar. That's really how I see it. I mean, if he doesn't win, it will be just sad. And Viola Davis, will she win? I think she could win, but I don't think she'll sweep. If she had one or two more scenes where she kind of exploded, and I'm not saying that's needed to happen, but that would have propelled her towards like, okay, this is a winning lead performance. It is definitely one of her best performances. Like if you love Viola Davis, you are not going to be disappointed. Her character was very much who she is, and she didn't necessarily need to grow. And so you don't really get like that sort of moment by the end. In Fences, for example, that monologue where she's fucking yelling and snotting, like that reveals something about the character. It's like, oh shit, she really felt like that way. She doesn't necessarily have that kind of moment here. And I think Chadwick Boseman's performance does feel a little bigger in the film. So I can see why somebody else would win, perhaps Vanessa Kirby. I wouldn't see anybody else being able to beat her unless it's like something we haven't seen, like maybe Andra Day. But she's still in the conversation to win, I think. Totally fun to watch. The way that she like doesn't make eye contact is really odd, but like, I don't know, she makes it work. I don't know what that is, but it's great. Picture, I think it's pretty in there. It's just good enough based on like the performances and how well made of a movie it is. I don't expect it to be enough people's favorite film to win. I'm actually a little more skeptical of the movie getting into Best Picture than I was before. I still think it's like, you know, gotta be on the top 10, but it didn't come across as a crowd pleaser. And then directing, I think you kind of think that he's got a shot, George C. Wolfe, at getting in. I mean, I'm not going to deny it's possible, but I think the director's branch usually goes for something a little more like auteur-y. I think if you put it up against One Night in Miami, I would say this has the edge in terms of like being a little bit better directed. But I don't necessarily know who they're more likely to nominate just because Regina King is like more recognizable. But I definitely wouldn't count him out for being a director contender. I think he could get nominated somewhere. But then we got technical categories and of course costumes and production design. I think that's got to be in there. Makeup could win. Cinematography, just because of the landscape this year, is a possibility, but I'm not sure this will take it. Editing is iffy. It had good editing, like maybe. Not confident. Score, never know with that. Maybe. I'm not confident either. It kind of has like one theme in it, which I really like, but it's not like
omnipresent or anything.
Yeah, I don't actually remember the score that well. I wouldn't say it's a top contender.
I don't know who's talking about sound. I didn't even think about
Well,
that.
just by virtue of it being like a music movie, I think some people think it can get sound, and I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. Picture, actor, actress, screenplay, art direction, costumes. So that's 6. Oh, makeup. So it gets at least 7. For sure, I think.
What are you waiting for? It to come on Netflix, perhaps? Go see it when it does. I would give this an 8 out of 10.
I'd also give it an 8 out of 10.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Will you be singing the blues on the way home from the theater?